What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk podcast here on the NBC Sports Boston podcast network. I am back from vacation. Finally, felt like I'm going to tell you, B-Rob, from Mass Live. 2 weeks goes by really quick when you've had a 9-month season. I feel like they should extend the off season when you go to the finals.
Well, just looking at you here, Chris, it looks like a successful trip. Looking very tan. You're always tan, and the haircut looks fresh. It looks like it's a nice summer dew, like you've been on the beach for a while here. So, winds all around, and it's not 95 degrees when you come back to Boston. So that's another one for you here.
I don't know. That's actually more daunting. I felt like I came back. I'm like, it's still mid-August. It's okay for summer to kick around for a couple more weeks. But whenever I'm matching the background of my wood grain, I feel like it has been a successful trip. I tried to tough it out. Apologies to my barber if you're listening. I tried to get through 2 weeks in South Carolina without shaving the haircut that I was already avoiding for like 2 months overdue. And finally, for reasons that like mostly sweat, I had to change. But that's not the trip everybody here wants to hear about. Today, the schedule is out, and we're here to digest a little bit of what is ahead for the 2022-23 season for the Boston Celtics. Now, a lot of the big dates had already leaked out, Christmas Day and the opening night, all that stuff, even that early season game against Miami down there, the rematch Eastern Conference Finals. But B-Rob, like just from a big picture standpoint, as we look at the schedule, I was telling you when we jumped on, I feel like this is one of the weirder schedules I've seen in my decade plus now being around the team, just because some of the road trips are weird, some of the structure of this thing is weird. What jumped out when you first took a glance at the 22-23 schedule?
Yes, that was 100% it in terms of both trips across the country, like literally every time zone across the country, it feels like for a couple of them. And then on top of that, some very long homestands. A lot, like, I don't know if me and you want to get like a cot for the TD Garden, but a couple of these weeks are going to be there for what feels like every other night for 2-3+ weeks, which I feel like is a bit of a rarity too, given the fact that they have to share that building with the Bruins. So it's going to be, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether you have those long extended road and home stretches a couple times during the year, you build camaraderie, build extra bonding on those trips in either direction. We'll see. But that's definitely what stuck out for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I remember thinking back to last year, the schedule was very road heavy out of the gates, and it felt like they had to wait till January till they were back at the Garden and sort of settle in. And I think the Celtics were concerned about that. You had some new pieces and a new coach. How would it all work? And we saw they struggled out of the gates. This year feels a little bit better in terms of being able to at least be around home. You mentioned it, and I mean, we're going to go month by month here in a second, but a long homestand at the end of November, a super long homestand end of December. It just really seems like it's advantageous, but at least more advantageous for them to kind of roll into January. And maybe as you start approaching the trade deadline, to feel a little bit better about where you're at than maybe they did a year ago. So I think they have to be relieved about that. But let's kind of dive into it. Let's start in October. Obviously, the home opener against Philly. A couple days off there. What jumps out to you? The going down to Miami. It feels like a pretty couple tough challenges out of the gates, but a chance for the Celtics to sort of find their way early in the month of October, or late in the month of October, as it may be.
Yeah, it seems, to be honest, it's I think a perfect situation for Ime Udoka and his coaching staff here, because you have the nice long layoff before your tough matchups against Philly to start the year, obviously, and then 2 days off before you head down to Miami, and then you get a nice 3-day break in the following week, and so it's you have 3 and 4 on the road for that opening weekend, but beyond that, you can really dive in there, and if you want to make any tweaks in terms of what you're seeing that first week of the season, you have a pretty nice window there to do it. And we talked about last year, that's a luxury they didn't have really, with a pretty daunting schedule early on there. So I think given that, and the fact that you only have a couple of not layups, but the Cavs and the Wizards are not going to be tough matchups there, it's a pretty nice recipe to have a strong start there, I feel like, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like, not looking past games, but I feel like you're going to be fired up for opening night. You're going to be fired up to go on the road back in Miami and thinking about Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and then to get Orlando, and we'll see what Chicago looks like. And but it feels like there's a chance there for the Celtics to sort of like feel good about their chances early on. And so then we roll into November. Let's just start here. What jumps out to you in November? I'm looking for like a marquee matchup. I guess the Dallas game jumps off the page at home there. What's your thoughts on November?
Well, first of all, clear that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule in November because this is you will not be missing a game on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday night, which is nice. It's nice to have that kind of uniformity there, but pattern exactly. We'll take that. A sneaky game I want to check out here. November 7th in Memphis.
Ooh.
I think that is one. It's too bad that the Celtics Memphis game last year to end the season, it kind of like it was stolen from us because that was a game that the Grizzlies had nothing to play for, so they were resting. But Memphis is clearly going to be, I think, a top 5-6 team in the league next year.
Nice,
certainly in the Western Conference. And so that's the next. You have the big hoopla of Philly and Miami out of the gate in the opening week, but that might be honestly the toughest team they play in the first month of the season overall. A road game in Memphis there with John Moran, Jaren Jackson Jr. They kind of loaded up again there. I'm excited to see that tilt early on.
Yeah, and so like I mean, you start thinking about Thanksgiving, and last year was obviously the big deal was like Kyrie coming back the night before Thanksgiving. This year, Dallas coming in, you get Sacramento coming off of that, and then again the first little homestand there where you get Dallas, Sacramento, Washington, Charlotte, and the thing that I started to allude to, the double dip with Miami, who you are. I mean, the 3 games with Miami within the first 30-something days of the season. It's I mean, I know this happens every year where you sort of see a team and then you don't see them again for forever. They actually go down to Miami the second game there in like late January. But I wonder can that stoke the little rivalry flames with Miami, and where's Miami stand in the Eastern Conference? But like you said, that Memphis game might be the first real barometer for where they're at after that first week, and then Dallas obviously coming in. We'll see where it goes from there. December, like this is the one thing. This is by far the thing that jumped off the most to me. That road trip, like what's going on there, B-Rob?
Get the freaking flyer miles ready. I've never seen anything like this. Do you start in New York? You not only you start in New York, you have to go up to Canada,
right?
For Toronto for back-to-back, and which is a tough matchup, a very tough back-to-back if Kevin Durant is still in Brooklyn at that point. And then you start your trip off like that, and now let's arguably play what could be the 3 of the top 4 teams in the Western Conference this year: Phoenix, Golden State, and the LA Clippers, all in succession. It's nice there that they have on a West Coast trip. It's rare that the games are that spread out there. So the Celtics will at least benefit from that, but that's a really tough road trip, Chris. And I don't know what you would consider like a positive road. Yeah. What's a successful road trip there? You could see I could see 2 and 4 being like, okay, that's at least, you got out of Dodge with that, but it is pretty brutal.
And that's why I go back to it. It's like almost, I think the Celtics got to make some hay there through November because I mean you get Miami and then you have to go. I mean, what a stretch! You have to play Miami second night of that own home and home, which we all know it's brutal. Like it almost feels like every home and home is the home games. It is a 1-1 split. It feels like it's really tough to beat the same team twice in your own building for whatever reason. So you get through that, you dust yourself off on Saturday, get on a plane, you go down to Brooklyn where, I mean, what have we been talking about all off season? Like we'll see where Kevin Durant ends up and how this whole saga plays out. But that is quite the game to start on a Sunday before you even launch into a road trip. Then go play a second night of a back-to-back against Toronto and all their young legs and 6'8" bodies. Then you have to get on a plane, go to Phoenix. Like normally they build in 2 days when you're like flying out west, but no, you got to go play Phoenix, probably one of the top teams in the Western Conference. You get 2 days to catch your breath, up to Golden State for an NBA Finals rematch, and then just dust yourself off because this wild ride doesn't end. We're going down to LA for what amounts to a double dip at the what is it even called now? Cryptocurrency, Arena. Whatever it is. The Staples Center, where you'll play the Clippers and the Lakers on back-to-back nights. And obviously the Clippers should be much better than they were last year. The Lakers, we'll see what happens. But I mean, that is crazy to me. Like, me, my eyes naturally gravitate when the schedule comes out to when's the West Coast trip? When are they playing in Miami? When can I get this tan back for at least a week during the season? And when I saw that, I was like, did we color code this wrong? Because it is incredibly daunting to have to go do that trip. I mean, you do get a little bit of a respite. You come home, 7-game homestand, Orlando, Indiana, but Minnesota should be loaded. Milwaukee comes in. I mean, I would love to know where the breaks are in the month of December. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of them. Even then Houston comes in and the Clippers. December is going to be kind of like, for me, the month to watch with this team. What do you look like as you emerge from December? And are you in a better spot than you were, last year, where they were kind of limping through the month of January before the changes happened and they launched from there? Let's spin it to January. Another little like weird 4-game trip. You go back out west, Denver and OKC, playing Dallas and San Antonio, two of the 3 Texas teams. Very few home games in the month of January. How you feeling about January, B-Rob?
How do you feel about New Year's Eve in Denver? That's a little bit of a wild card.
Notice that,
right? Like that's not. I mean, they generally don't play a lot on. I feel like there's been a lot of New Year's Eve games in the past, like matinees for the Celtics. So this is a weird one where they'll have to fly out there on the 31st, and then I mean that's a kind of a quirky mountain zone trip you don't see, or central time zone trip where it's at least spaced out. You don't have any tough back-to-backs there. But then beyond this month is, I guess, a step in the easier direction as far as the overall schedule goes. But the Golden State tilt on January 19th at home on a Thursday night, that's certainly going to be must-see TV. The Lakers coming to town on the Saturday night in a nationally televised matchup, that's another big one too. So not a lot of home matchups this month. It's really road heavy when you look at January, and with a couple tough road games mixed in later in the month too, with Toronto, Miami as well. But I don't know, the winter months are going to be a slog here, because you look to see, okay, you can take a breath after December here, but January you're on the road much more than you are at home, almost double the amount of home games compared to road games, and they're not easy ones either.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest break is that Lakers game on the 28th, and then you get 3 days off before you have to play Brooklyn at home, and then Phoenix comes in, rolling into February. But it does feel like you're just sort of at that point, you're looking at when does the All-Star break arrive? We'll obviously have the trade deadline in there as well. Just it's so funny. I mean, we sit here and we say, we judge based off last year, right? Like, oh, who are the good teams last year? How much change will there be? But there's no stretch where you're just like, that's a one where the Celtics can rip off 5 wins or something like that. And I mean, I was pretty bullish when I saw that 55 win total come out from Vegas. I said, oh, I think the Celtics were over that. They were there with all the struggles of this year. But then the schedule comes out, and I'm like, oh, maybe they knew something when they were mapping out that total. All right, February, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of 8 at home. Before the deadline, this feels like a chance for the Celtics to sort of maybe get some momentum. Maybe your roster is set by that point. Is this the launch point for the Celtics before the break, or do I got to wait till after the break, B-Rob?
I think you got to wait till. I mean, it depends again. Where's Kevin Durant playing? Because that's the February 1st. Their home game at Brooklyn, next to a home game at Phoenix. That could be a sneaky tough stretch, but you at least have a nice break going into the month. You only have one back-to-back all month long. That's pretty big based on what you went through in December and January. And then, but there's still some really tough stretches in here. You still have Phoenix. You have Philly coming to town. You have a back-to-back games against Memphis and Milwaukee before the All-Star break. So things certainly lighten up after the break. You have, I think, a lot of under 500 teams there for a road trip to end the month in Indy. And, I mean, the Knicks, I would guess, are going to be hovering around that point. But yeah, it's certainly a breath of fresh air, but still nothing like in terms of October, in terms of how, you're not going to be able to ease into this month based on the strength of the schedule, I feel like.
And look, I'm not supposed to talk about national games. We want everybody watching NBC Sports Boston. But look, let's face it, one of the things that happens when you're successful is you get more national dates. And, that final week before the All-Star break, Memphis is an ABC game Sunday afternoon. It's, when you're in the spotlight, those games there's a little extra something to them. And then you turn around 2 nights later in Milwaukee for a TNT game. And so it's just they're going to be in the spotlight. Nothing is going to be easy for them. And then you catch the All-Star break coming out of it, end of the month, having to go on the road. It feels like one thing. It always felt like we'd come out of the All-Star break and there'd be the trade deadline and we'd be in Denver or some West Coast trip. trade deadline feels like. Do you know the trade deadline date this year? It's got to be earlier, right? Early
Yeah,
February.
it's usually I would guess it's February 9th,
Right.
based on just past calendars.
And that always allows people to sort of breathe now instead of going through the All-Star break and things getting weird during that stretch. But to come out and you finish with a road trip, Indy, Philly, New York, you roll into March here and come back home, Cleveland. It feels like there's 94 games against Brooklyn this year. I like every time I look up, there is a Brooklyn game. And again, those we talk about whether it's regardless of the magnitude, but if that roster is the same, those games are going to carry some extra heft. The second West Coast trip there in March as well with Houston, Minnesota, Portland, Utah, with starting in Atlanta. Again,
yeah, what's again the weird, like, what's going on here if he's starting in these time zones for these trips?
At the end, look, so I guess if you're going to go on the road, you'd rather do a couple of 5-gamers, 6-gamers, whatever you got to do to prevent having the super long ones. But like, my eyes just naturally gravitate to those. I mean, from that Brooklyn to LA one in December, then Denver to San Antonio and in January, and now here in March. I mean, Atlanta, Houston, Minnesota, Portland, Utah, and Sacramento. I mean, that's just, regardless of the level of competition is much easier than the first West Coast trip. Or so we, think about. I mean, maybe I'm looking past Minnesota, and we'll see what Utah looks like this year. But obviously, with them in rebuild mode, you wouldn't think quite as daunting. But it's still tough. Like that is a daunting trip. A long,
almost 2 weeks.
Where's Sean Grandy with his frequent flyer mile calculator? Because I feel like I might need to break out my abacus and figure out the miles here. To map this out, because that's a lot. And then even later in the month, having to go back to Milwaukee. Look, we lived that Milwaukee flight. It's still it's a long way to go especially for a little 2-game trip that starts in Washington, come home, got to play the second night of a back-to-back. That's the thing. I think there's 12 back-to-backs on the schedule, and virtually all of them require travel. Like there's very rare instance, like November, there's one home and home, Washington, Charlotte, but feels like you're a lot of these you've got travel in between, making them just a little bit more daunting. And then April, look, you're at the finish line. Who knows what happens? You could be playing the Luke Cornets of the world at that point, but a double dip with Toronto, maybe the standings matter at that point. Atlanta on the final night, another Eastern Conference rival that could factor in. But all right, B-Rob, well, what's the win total based on now that you've had 30 seconds to study the schedule?
It's 65-7. No. I have to go. I think this is a tough schedule, and I think you put their over under at 55. Did you say? And
yeah, I think that was the Vegas opening,
and I think I'm gonna have to go under that. I think I'm gonna go like 54-28 here, and I just think that this is a schedule that is unforgiving for the long road trips and against some tough opponents on multiple fans, and even for the easy road trips, I think it's a pretty daunting schedule. Like you're in Sacramento for game 6 of a road trip, like on travel day 11. Like normally that should be a gimme game, but at that point of a road trip, like all bets are off there. So when you look, I think there's a lot of those type of games on this schedule. So the fact that they've built up so much depth to this team will come in handy, I think, in this schedule, because you're going to see, I think, a fair amount of nights here where strategic rest is given to, certain parts of the roster, because this is going to be a grind, Chris.
Maybe they just let Al stay home for like half of a road trip or something. I mean, I don't know.
Meet us in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, maybe they need we go split squad and half go to Phoenix, half go to Golden State and get ready for that game. Because there is some daunting travel. I go back to it. Like I really thought last year they were going to be challenged early. This year it feels like they're going to be challenged. It isn't necessarily out of the gate. It's more just it's going to feel like a grind throughout that season, and you're going to have that target on your back coming off a successful season like that. But yeah, like it's, I don't know. Maybe we'll look back on this pod and we'll be wrong about everything. And you just never know who's going to emerge and how the strength of schedule is going to look. But first blush for me, just like you said, I do think when I saw that win total, I said, sounds a little low. And now I think maybe they just knew something. Right. Vegas always knows.
They had the inside track on this. The one thing I will say, though, just going through the entire schedule for you now, having a really strong start matters even more, because November honestly looks like maybe the second easiest month of the whole schedule. So you want to be coming out guns blazing if you're Ime Udoka here. Build a little bit of a cushion heading into December and January, because with this schedule, I think you're going to need it.
All right. Well, I'm ready for it. I am ready for it. I'm like even a lot. And the other thing that jumped out to me, I'll just say, like, is because like I'm still kind of wrapping my mind about. Look at all those Saturday games.
Yeah, what's that about?
You were joking about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's the usual rhythm of the Celtics calendar, and obviously sharing an arena with a hockey team. You got to kind of be in that pattern. But man, from November to like March, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Saturday games. I was just telling someone where they were trying to plan a birthday party, and I said, "Oh, Saturdays are usually always clear." Yeah, well, I should have conferenced with Adam Silver and the schedule crew before I said that. All right, let's push the schedule aside for a little bit because, all right, Beer, I told you at the top here, I went on vacation for 2 weeks. I literally did not
miss anything.
I didn't. Well, did I? Because I feel like I asked some friends to catch me up on what I missed, and I heard there was people mad about. There's a video of Kevin Durant and Tatum working out, and that got them mad, and people were mad about Tatum going to weddings, and I'm like, thank God I did not open my laptop. I did not pay any attention to it. I'll say this: I might have asked around. I said I've asked some people in the know, and I said, do I need to bring my laptop on vacation? Should I expect a trade at any point? Should I expect some big news? And I was told I could probably pretty confidently navigate. And now look, I hope Celtics brass are getting some rest in the month of August here because things are going to jump back up pretty quickly. But again, fill me in. I trust your educated opinion. Did I miss anything, or was it the same Durant circus that I left before I went on vacation?
I think it's the same. I'd honestly be shocked if anything changed in these last 2 weeks. The reporting is still coming out, and the question when you have the reporting is, how old is that? How old are these leaks that are surfacing now? And it's a long calendar in the offseason, Chris, and people have to. I mean, there's obviously legitimate reporting going on, but there's also time to fill here. So I'm of the belief. I thought this was going to be a very quiet offseason for us. I was looking forward to having, like you said, putting the laptop away. I think we are probably safe on that front for at least the rest of this month. I think next month, when the sense of urgency ramps up for a bunch of teams around the NBA in terms of heading into camp, I think that's when things get a little more interesting.
So, and tell me if I'm wrong. Here's my general gut on where things stand, and I think you can. I mean, this isn't like rocket science, and I have no like super inside information when I'm saying this. But I feel like the Celtics did their due diligence. Like all the reporting came out, and the one reason the Celtics can't unequivocally come out and just like stomp this out is like, look, there is a package they would do for Kevin Durant, and is it ever going to get to the point where the Nets would accept that? Like, who knows?
Right.
But I think my general sense all along has been it is more likely than not that the Boston Celtics will enter next season with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the core of this team intact and move forward. But, like you always have to kind of keep your antennas up and see where this thing goes. And any package that had Jaylen Brown as the centerpiece would probably be the best of what's been reported to this point. And so the Celtics can't just unequivocally say they're and they never would. But again, it might just be just due diligence, but it doesn't feel like it's gone anywhere. And maybe that's just the NBA offseason. Maybe that's just like the Nets trying to stoke some activity here. But am I wrong to think that, like, unless I don't know. I just guess my whole sense has been I just don't think it's ever going to get to a point where like it really kind of kicks up with the Celtics and Nets.
Yeah, it's certainly, when you look at what's been out there and like who benefits from there being buzz or activity, you look at the Nets and you also look at Durant and Durant's camp and being like, okay, if he wants out, like he wants teams in the mix to get him, that places he want to go to, that benefits him too. And I agree with you. I think the odds remain strongly in favor of the Celtics, proceeding as is into next season. But here's the other thing too with the Jaylen Brown hypothetical is that if you're the Celtics here, like where is Kevin? If Kevin Durant isn't going to go to Boston, but is going to be traded, where are the teams where he is most at risk of going to? It's a lot of Eastern Conference rivals of the Celtics. And so from that perspective, the Celtics strategically want to keep a little bit of themselves in the mix here, not just to be, to say, hey, like, yeah, there is a deal we would do this for, but also you want to make sure if Durant goes to a team that you're going to be rival with, that they're kind of emptying the cupboard for him. And that involves leveraging what you have, leveraging assets, and potentially driving up the price. And so I think that's something that's been overlooked to a degree when saying like, yeah, why have these why the Celtics still present in these discussions? Like, well, why would it benefit them to pull away? Like what?
Right.
If Durant's eventually going to go somewhere else, like the Celtics want to, at the very least, see him go west or go to a place where they have to give up everything for him. So that's the other subplot I think to watch here in the coming weeks.
And like I said, there's 64 games against the Nets next year. So you
Jaylen Brown versus Kim Durant. Like, are we going to see that matchup next year? And for Brooklyn Celtics, we'll see.
Well, we'll see. I am fascinated by it, but I will say, I always get a little bit of the itch. And last year I was on vacation and the Robert Williams extension went down, and I jumped into the fray because, that was a major moment for me. But it was nice that this year was a little bit quiet, and I would hear people talking about some of the buzz, and my friends kept me abreast of what was going on. But it was nice not to have to open the laptop, and I don't think I'll be as fortunate moving forward. But and it starts with schedule season. The little crawl to camp starts right now. What do you think? What's left on Brad Stevens' to-do list? The Grant extension. Do you think anything bubbles up here over the next couple of weeks?
I don't see them. No, I think the Grant extension, I think it's possible it could happen by the October deadline, but I don't certainly think that's not a top priority based on, I think you have to see somewhere some other dominoes fall. I honestly think, like, how does he look in camp? How is he going to fit into this new look roster? And that maybe, kind of helps them decide what, put a number in terms of what they're willing to offer him for right now. And then, they will offer Jaylen Brown the extension if he is still here when he's eligible to do that. That comes in October, but that's not going to happen for a reason where Jaylen Brown can obviously wait for more down the line. So it's but
you absolutely do it. Like my point has always been, I don't care if it's just one piece of paper you have to put together, and it's probably some legwork that goes into it, but you have to let the player know that you are like, hey, we are doing this because we want you here. And, I'm sure, like, look, they have conversations. It's not like there's a vacuum, then no communication between player and team. But, you still got to just do those perfunctory steps just to make sure the player knows you are aware. All right, well, I got to go figure, like, we joke about this all the time, but now we can figure out our lives for the next 9 months. So we got to start, like, booking some travel, start looking at prices, flights, stuff like that. So I'm gonna let you get on with that, B-Rob. But I hope you get to squeeze. You get any vacation with you and the little one this year? Like, do you and the fam get to do anything?
We went down to Wareham on the Cape for a week. So that was traveling with 1-year-olds, Chris. It's an adventure. But
I've been there. So
is it a vacation? Can we call it a vacation?
No, but. Okay. You're doing the right thing. You're staying local. You're managing the situation, much like the Celtics are going to have to manage the 22-23 schedule. All right, B-Rob, thank you as always. Everybody go like, subscribe. I'm so rusty I can't even remember the outro. Check us out on the YouTube page where you'll see the pretty little schedule with John Henry pressing all the buttons behind the scenes. Go check out the schedule on NBC Sports Boston. Go check out B-Rob's work on Mass Live. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.